Welcome to another edition of Cattle Chatter. I'm Susan Littlefield with the American Ag Network, and we have got a semi to unpack today. So much has happened just in the last 24 hours before we even recorded this program. And so much of what has happened has had a profound effect on the cattle industry, whether you're seeing it on that dollar line or it's just something that is bothering you with where this industry is at right now, at no fault to the cattle producer. We're going to talk about all of this and how all these comments and tweets and social media has really played a role as to what we've seen in the trade. So Brad Kooima, of course, joins us. Brad is with Kooima Kooima Varilek out of Sioux Center, Iowa. And I think we got to stock there. I'm glad, first of all, you could fit me in. You're a crazy busy guy, especially with all this that's been happening in the last 24 hours.
Well, thanks, Susan, for you fitting me in. And yeah, it's, between Costco calling us cattle feeders to ask me what I think we ought to price hamburger at, and Fairway wanting to know what I'm charging for ribeyes today, I'm trying to be funny.
I know
But
you
I
are.
mean, to blame the rancher or the cattle feeder for this, I mean, is single-handedly a situation where they don't even understand how the process works or even what the issue is. And I'm really tired of people using the word problem. We have a problem. We don't have a problem. This is an issue that started 20 years ago, all right? And we're here because of tight supply. We're here because of the smallest cow herd in 75 years. And we're here partly because of this ridiculous inflationary policies that were established by the last administration too. Don't forget that. I mean, so yeah, I'm trying to lighten it up by being a little bit funny that somehow we're in charge of what hamburger costs, and we aren't, of course. And anybody that watches this show is smart enough to know that I think that I'm trying to be funny, but it's everybody's got days where they've got manure to scoop, right? And so I guess that's one of those days that the cattle people have, and certainly commodity brokers this week, because of the uncertainty. One tweet, one comment, one make a big deal about this big announcement 13 pages long that was pretty much, in my estimation, I mean, I'm sure you feel better that we're going to graze 5 million acres of CRP on cattle that we don't have, right? I mean, and we're going to do more with the school lunch program, and we're going to help these small packers. I mean, how out of touch are you? There's more shackle spaces than there are cattle now. That had nothing to do with the issue. And so right. I'm sorry, I whacked out on you here. So
no, I appreciate your thoughts, because you made a comment before we started the program about why we are where we are right now. And I think even before we talk more about what's going on in the cash market, we need to just remind folks that you mentioned at the beginning, 20 years, and you kind of rattled off a lot of things that have kind of layered up, kind of like that 7-layer cake.
Well, yes. I mean, you can go all the way back to mad cow, to closing plants, to plants on fire, to September 11th, and drought. Throw 2 droughts in between all their deals, and so a couple of those lasted for more than a year, and then finally the coup de grace, as it were, was the COVID pandemic, right? I mean, so the cattle people went through several black swans, several issues here. That's what caused liquidation, and economics is what caused the liquidation, right? I mean, the poor margins. So I don't know. It's pretty easy for any cattle group, whatever organization you're in, I think, to feel a little jaded that somehow the reason we're this high is because it was the tariffs. Does did the Brazil tariff contribute to less grinding meat coming in? Absolutely. Is that the real reason why the market's up here? Not in my opinion at all. Now, that whole issue there is still a gorilla in the room. I mean, that can change. I mean, does anybody really know why we have this 86% tariff on Brazil? No, because it's a peeing contest between our president and their president. So there's some variables out there that create a market just like we had here today, tilted, because there's the 2 gorillas are, to me, Brazil, and even the bigger one, the elephant in the room, is the Mexican border, of course. So I don't expect anything soon on that. I would be surprised if there isn't something quite soon on the Brazil front, in my opinion. I'm guessing.
So, and obviously you're waiting on Mexico to happen, but with Brazil and these talks coming up over the weekend, can the cattle market expect some other tweet message to come out that rocks the boat before Monday's trade?
It's exactly what I fear. It feels like now we're in this feud. Okay, where one party is, I'm going to get my way, and a lot of the rest of the cattle industry is going like, ho, wait, maybe stay in your lane here, and um, worrying then and knowing sometime with the personality that we're dealing with here, that yeah, I don't think it takes too much imagination to think that, well, you don't suppose if he's talking to the president Sunday of Brazil that maybe he goes, hey, you know what, we're getting along now. I probably won't use the same thing we did off air with my pigeon playing chess, but
Oh, come on.
yeah, strut around and act like you won, kick over the pieces. Um, I worry that it wouldn't be take too much imagination to say maybe that's time for that tariff to come back off. I mean, if indeed he wants to get something cheaper here, that would be a start, certainly in the grinding meat, the hamburger section of the deal. So I don't think there's anything mysterious about that meeting, and I don't think I'm the only one that thinks at some point you're probably going to see something come out of it.
So, what's the long speculator's thoughts on all of this?
In my opinion, a long speculator has to be thinking, I want no part of this. A single tweet. We're going to make a White House announcement. I mean, before today, and we were sharply lower on feeders again today, but before that, the last 4 days, 2 of those were down limit, and that's $9.25. I think the long speculator, the fund manager that's trading from the long side or whatever, even the John Q public, I got to feel like that person's like going like, I don't need this. I don't need this kind of exposure. I don't need this kind of risk. And, don't forget, every day there's people that are potential sellers. Every day I'm a potential seller because I feed cattle, right? So I I love a bull market. You know that. Most of the time you and I have been talking, we've been talking about how this bull market was coming and it was going to be good. But I feel like, now we're in a different place here. And with all this outside noise, I just worry that you're going to chase the long speculator. I think you're going to tilt the market because there is still good cash markets out there, Susan. I mean, I sold cattle at 240 yesterday yet. So, maybe we'll go back to what we had last spring and summer, where I can't believe we're going to be this high, and then the cash market goes and drags the futures with it. It's much healthier than what we had just a couple of weeks ago. Remember, we went on and on about how, we flipped the basis. Now the futures are a premium. Now it's telling you it's going to get better. Just make them bigger. Go ahead. Feeders are too high. Feed's cheap, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, we kind of fixed that now, assuming cash. There's a little bit of 240 in the south today, and October futures basically closed just a hair below 240. So now we've kind of got a flat zero basis here again. But I could very easily see that go that way, and actually that'd be healthier for the whole cattle industry, I think, if that would happen anyway.
But you can't change anything in the next 150 days when it comes to supply.
You are 100% right. There is absolutely, the die is cast. There's very little that can happen to change the fed cattle supply the next while because of the border being closed. No matter what happens, if the border would open next week, Texas is still going to be tight on numbers for 150 days. Actually, probably longer than that. Now, there's a component that, and at some point we're gonna do a deep dive on this program, and that's the beef on dairy thing, because that's kind of like a little bit of a quiet thing that's going on, and not so quiet in some areas, that is making up for some of the shortfall or the lack of the ability to import cattle from there. But nevertheless, to your question, you're right. The supply is going to stay tight, and as long as we get to Thanksgiving and then see the middle meats kick in again, which I think will happen, the steak cuts, the high price stuff, the stuff that you feature during that holiday period, then typically that ought to pick up the cutout. And I guess I still think from a supply standpoint, I'm still a first quarter bull based on what the supply is, as long as we can get through this rhetoric here that we've had the last little while. I still think we could be higher than we've been before yet, I believe, in the first quarter, as long as we don't get some kind of a some kind of sidearm fastball here that surprises us all.
So, in a nutshell, we need to just tighten the seatbelt and be ready for a crazy ride in this final quarter.
I'm afraid so. Risk is risk is as big as I can remember, and all the time I've done this. I'd say, I keep talking about boring stuff like put options and things like that, and regular old risk management. I just there's some of this stuff, Susan, that emotionally it feels like when corn went to $8.
Yeah.
Now the corn market's way different. You can raise a record crop in 1 year and change supply, right? And you could hold a heifer today and not have anything to show for it for 30 months. Okay, that cycle. You can't just create supply like you can with chickens, or even hogs have a shorter cycle, of course. I understand. But it does feel like that to me, where when we were at 8, it was never going to go down. It was going to go to 10. We're bulletproof. Go out there and pay too much for whatever, and create an economic problem when we in fact don't get to stay up there forever. So I don't want the young guys to get burnt here. I lived through 15 and 16. I know what that deal's like, and I'm too old to do that again. So I'm probably the old, boring, cautious guy. So sorry.
Well, and I guess that one thing shows the consumers a passion for continuing to eat great beef, because we have not seen an influx of fake meat coming to the market to help fill that empty spot.
I thought of that this morning, actually.
Great minds.
Yeah, I know. That's why we get along so well.
Yep.
Yeah, that was pretty much a failure, and you would say that at a time when it should have had. I mean, it should have been a pretty easy downhill deal for them to step in front of it. So, the demand issue is still, I'd say it's maybe the edge came off of it here, but to say that demand is really, really bad, I don't think is fair at all. We're a protein starved populace that figured out that beef is great. We just need to, you tell somebody that something's too high and they'll believe it whether it is or not. That's how some people are, so I don't like the rhetoric of this is too high. Baseball hats are too high. I was going to buy a Vikings hat at the last game, $50. I said, really? I mean, and that's a dumb analogy, but
no, but it makes sense.
Watch TV. What's it cost to watch TV? You got a Paramount, Hulu, Disney, Paramount, blah, 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 blah. I mean, it's like, I would look at the coffee place on my way to town. There's 6 people in line for their $7 coffee at 7 a.m. Anyway, go on and on. We just need to make sure that we're killing the available supply, that we haven't backed anything up here for a minute. I think you got a window here. If it wouldn't be for all the news, that I would have still said that we got to be careful between now and Thanksgiving, because we got some big cattle. We need to clean that up. But cash market has really, really performed well. Let's stay current, guys. Let's get there.
All right. Sounds good. Looking forward to talking to you next week to see what's changed from now until then. And we'll be talking to you from the National FFA Convention.
Oh, fun. I wish I was going.
Yeah, me too. In the meantime, best way for folks to get a hold of you?
The website's kkvtrading.com, and we'd rather have you call 712-722-0023.
And that, folks, another edition of Cattle Chatter.
The views and opinions of this program are those of the hosts, guests, and callers. There is substantial risk of loss in trading futures and options, which you should carefully consider prior to trading.